made yourself a cup of coffee, a cup of tea. You can do so whilst we begin with the introductions. So first things first, thank you very much for joining us on our first installment of LCG Talks. This will be a reoccurring weekly with different members of the LCG team. To introduce myself, my name is Housam and Nasr, and I'm one of the co-founders at London Canna Group. I'm also joined today by Haidar Zubair, our fellow co-founder and BDO, and the lovely Christina Sponiak, who is our LCG's marketing director, which I'm sure you've all met. So today we're going to be talking about starting and opening a new CBD business. And I'd like to hope the information that I'm going to particularly share with you today is something that will allow you or help you to open any form of business, whether it's a coffee shop, a restaurant. So to give you a background about what I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to be focusing on the property aspect of things. You've come up with the idea that you want to open a CBD vape shop or any form of business, and you are now looking at the property aspect. Why I'm going to be focused on the property aspect, I'll give you a background about myself. So for those of you that don't know, since I graduated from university 7 years ago, I have been working within my family business, which is related in property, focusing on commercial and residential properties in the southeast of London. Over those 7 years, I've acclimatized and I've gained invaluable skills dealing with leases, dealing with applicants and landlords, and managing their properties as well as our own. Through that experience and having decided to start my own ventures, these skills that I've learned have allowed me to understand the mistakes and fails and successes of other businesses who have approached my property side of business and what they did well and what they didn't. So today I'm going to be, under the property aspect, I'm going to be focused on 4 things, 3 mainly, and then I'll have some time, I'll start talking about branding, but Haidar will be discussing that in further detail. So the first point that I'll be discussing is about location. And as you've heard, and one famous quote is saying location, location, location. And location is critical for any business. And excuse me if I'm telling you things that you may already know. I'm not sure about the understanding of most people today, so I'll start off and I'll build my way up. So in terms of location, what you want to understand is once you've found a prospective property that you think is suitable for what you're hoping to do, it's very important that you have researched and gone to the area numerous of times and understand the demographic of the area, the brand that you're hoping or the shop that you're hoping to open. What sort of clientele are you looking for? Is this an area with students? Is it an area that has older people living there? Does that match with the ideal customer that you're trying to attract? The area itself, what's its accessibility like? Is there a train station nearby? What's the transport links to it? How are your customers going to arrive to your store? Generally speaking as well, in terms of CBD and vape shops, transport is key. Is there parking around the facility to allow your customers to easily access it? One of the other things that you're doing once you're doing your market research in and around the area of property that you may have found is understanding, is there any competition? What is that competition going to be like? What do they differ from you? And what's their unique selling point? And how does that differ from yours? And doing so, you will understand the sort of footfall that arrives in the area. Is it an area with less footfall but is easier, more accessible? And obviously with less footfall in different areas, it doesn't mean that you need to go and get a shop in a very prominent high street. You can always find local gems and high streets that are readily available and less expensive than you going to Shoreditch or going to Oxford Street and getting a prominent store. Maybe your branding doesn't work, cover that sort of high aspect of things, because then your prices is increasing. So that was a summary on location. The next important point to discuss, especially in this climate, is negotiation. And it's a point now that I should have made to start, but I hope this time everyone is well, friends and family are well during this current pandemic, and I hope you're all keeping well and safe. In this climate, negotiation is critical and key. And obviously we don't want to be talking about people's demise and other things, but unfortunately during this climate has meant a lot of businesses have been unable to survive. And hence, due to this, there is a wider array of pool of commercial property that is available on the market. And due to this, landlords are in a position where they allow you to negotiate further. So with the best things, when you're looking at your commercial property, there's the main aspects. You have rents, for example. You're in a position where if you're taking on a new property, you can discuss about negotiating the price of the rent. With that, you can discuss things like rent-free periods to allow you to develop the shop and give you some time to get in your builders and to develop the property into the end finish that you're hoping for. Another thing that you want to be wary of and what you should be looking for is, especially in this climate, you're going to find properties. There's two kinds of commercial properties that you may find. Certain properties will come with something called a premium. And a premium, to explain things, is generally, if I had given an example, if I owned a property and I had a lease within that property and I wanted to vacate, and I was in a prominent area, I had my business and I wanted to move on, I would look at selling that lease to someone else. And that is, and you claim for your cost, which is a premium. So that covers the lease, that covers the fixtures and fittings in the property, and also covers the goodwill of the property. So generally speaking, you would pay a premium to take a property in a good location with current business operating. For a new business, paying a premium doesn't necessarily make sense, especially if it's not a business that you're looking to open. So if you were looking to open a coffee shop and it was already established and it has its already customer base, you may consider paying a premium to have that advantage of getting a business that's already up and running. However, if you're looking to open a CBD or a vape shop or any kind of business that's unrelated to the current business in the property, paying a premium, especially in this market, is unsustainable. So during this pandemic, a lot of properties have become available, and you're more likely to find properties that are vacant and empty and do not have a premium attached to it. So these are the best properties that you want to be approaching for, saving your costs and ensuring that your budget that you've set in place is more suitable for covering your rent, covering your deposits, and covering any payments that you need to make the shop into the end goal, the end vision that you have in mind. The other thing that you want to be negotiating on is certain aspects of the lease. How long is the lease term? Can you discuss about putting a break clause in your lease? And a break clause generally means it gives you the opportunity, if the business isn't operating well or as you had hoped, that you can give some notice to your landlord to be able to vacate the property earlier. So generally speaking, you can negotiate a break clause. If you have, say, a 5-year lease that you've negotiated, you can put a break clause after 3 years, after 2 years. And so nothing is set in stone, and don't be afraid to ask. If you don't ask, you generally won't get. So I always believe in going in and being able to be able to understand what your landlord is flexible to move on. The other thing that is very critical to do as well is that when we had the opportunity to open Vape in 2017, which we're now rebranding to Code LDN, and Canna Club in 2019, we had the opportunity, we approached the landlords with a concept deck so he can understand what we're hoping to use the property for. Generally speaking, most landlords do not understand what CBD and vape is. So it's critical that you make them comfortable with what your business concept is and what you're hoping to try to achieve. And for them to understand that actually they've come with that mentality that, or generally speaking, cannabis is something that most people don't want to entertain. So it's something that you want to ease and make them understand what it is that you're exactly approaching them. And lastly, before you complete or agree, once you've found the most suitable property, I would strongly recommend using a solicitor to ensure that you're protected and you're covered, and all the terms within the lease are okay, and you're safe from any aspects of things. So that generally covers the second point about negotiation. The third point that I'm going to be honing on is about design and execution. So the most important thing is to plan ahead. Before you sign any form of legal document or anything, it's very important that you understand what's going to be the costs involved for you moving forward and taking on this property. You want to understand how much rent are you going to be paying in advance? Are you paying rent monthly, quarterly? Generally speaking, commercial rents are paid in quarterly, and understand as well the costs involved for making the shop into the final image that you're hoping for. Most importantly is ensuring that you have builders that coming attend and giving you and achieving several quotes, and you'll find that there'll be a huge variance, generally speaking, between builders' quotes for what you're looking to do. And you want to try as much as possible to ensure that your builders' quotes includes everything that you're hoping to achieve. Generally speaking, if you come whilst the builder's already working and ask them to do extra work, you'll incur a huge fee to adding on or making amendments to what the works need to be done. So with that, you can plan ahead by ensuring you have a floor plan. I strongly recommend having 3D renderings to understand what your customer is going to feel or see when they come in, where's the best aspects of putting your display, your counter, your display units, how you're going to display your products. Does that match with how you hope the customer experience is going to be? So that covers the design and execution, and that also comes from seeing your builders and understanding how long the work's going to take. You can then negotiate the sort of time frame that you possibly need by having rent-free periods to ensure that you get to that stage that you were hoping for. And the last thing, which I'll quickly briefly touch on because I've passed my allotted time, is branding, which Haidar will touch on further. So what does your brand say about you as a business? How are you unique from your competitors, and why would your customers approach your store rather than anybody else? These are the sort of important key elements that you want to focus on, and what sort of customer experience do they gauge when they come into your stores. So that covers my aspect of things. And just to briefly summarize, location, ensure you've got most important is the location, ensuring that you've done your research beforehand, negotiating with your landlord to make sure that you have your terms that you're happy with, especially in this climate where you're going to have more opportunities. Design and execution, plan ahead. If you fail to plan, prepare to fail. It's very important. And your branding. And these exercises which I've shared with you today has been critical and key from my previous experience in property as to today to allow us to open our 2 stores today. I'm sure you have questions, and towards the end I'll be happy to answer any questions. And that covers me. I'll now pass you on to Haidar, who will now talk to you about the branding element of things.
Hey guys, hope everyone's doing well today. Housam, thank you for your nice words and explaining the whole process of how to get a shop and how to get everything set up. I'm going to be going through the branding aspect of what brands to bring into the store, the pricing structure, payment structure, product range, and most importantly, content. So in any of our stores, before we pick any brand, there's a few checks that we like to do. First of all, in the CBD industry, the number one aspect of bringing any brand in is credibility. Making sure you do thorough reviews on that brand, do background research, make sure that the brand has good lab tests. They're sending you lab tests and everything like that. Obviously, when it comes to lab tests, look for CBD content, pesticide, heavy metals, and everything. Credibility, as I said, is very important. After that, what I look for personally is branding guidelines. I like to make sure I bring in brands that are following their branding guidelines. What I mean by that is, what color themes are they using? What tone of language are they using? How consistent they are in terms of their social media, POS as well, which is very important. Make sure they're consistent the whole way through. That's what customers like. After that, what I like to look at is, if we have a selection of 10 brands, make sure that they appeal to different demographics of consumers. A lot of times you go into retail stores and they'll have 60% of their range that focuses on the same demographic of people, which isn't always good. One example that I'll bring up is Dr. Watson, one of the brands that we help create. If you look at their branding guidelines, look at their social media, everything's very consistent. Their name is very, a lot of consumers feel very comfortable because of their name, having the phrase doctor in there. So as I said, consistency, making sure the brand on their online, Google reviews, everything's consistent, credible, and everything like that. After that, I'm going to touch up on pricing. So one thing you'll realize about a CBD store is you'll have customers that come in to purchase their CBD products, and a lot of times they'll come with a friend who hasn't or tried CBD or hasn't planned to try CBD. So having products from as low as £5 as a little tester is very important to introduce people onto CBD. So making sure you have a good product range that targets each different pricing structure is very important. A lot of time clients ask us, what margin should we go for? If you're a brick and mortar store, I'll recommend that you get at least 35 to 40% margin. That makes sure you cover all your bills and rents and everything, because it's very expensive to have a brick and mortar store. Now, in terms of leverage, depending on what location you have and how much your rent is and business rates, you can build a relationship with brands and ask for 50%, 45% margins. A lot of times, certain brands will be happy to do that to get into a certain location. Lastly, in the terms of pricing structure, payment terms is very important. So in Canna Club, we have a 3-month listing phase. So that allows us to do all of our checks on brands, gives us 3 months to really look into the brands, make sure we're happy to bring anyone in. So in that process, what we like to do is there's 3 main payment methods. One is the simple, most commonly used, is you pay the invoice. The other 2 give you some flexibility in terms of your cash flow, which is very important as a retailer. So that can work as you pay a certain percentage, that could be 30, 40, 50% of the invoice. The remaining you pay in 2 weeks to 4 weeks. Or lastly, certain brands, depending on your relationship, will let you pay 30 days after you've had the stock, which again is very good because it's all about cash flow. Opening up that cash flow in your business is very important as a retailer, so you can spend money on marketing, making sure you're getting SEO done, making sure your wages and bills are covered. One of my final points is product range. A lot of times there's so many brands in the CBD industry that lap each other. So making sure you have a product range that doesn't overlap and is quite broad is very important. So what I mean by that is you can have 3 brands, for example, that will all have CBD oils, and there's only so many ways you can formulate CBD oil unless you have extra ingredients. So focusing on brands that have those extra ingredients, make sure that not all of your oils are the same. So consumers are going to enjoy that. There's more variety of different oils for them to purchase. Lastly, we personally love to work with brands that have a lot of content and they're able to share that content, because in the CBD industry, you have a lot of regulations in terms of advertisement. So social media advertisement is very important. So working with brands that already have a lot of content stored and are able to work with you as a retailer to create new content to draw in customers is very important. Online presence is number 1. So making sure you have a good, solid social media account. Your website is nice and clean. All your products are displayed compliance-wise. Everything in your website meets everything. And important thing for us that we're looking into is YouTube. YouTube now has a major role in SEO. So making sure that, again, your branding guidelines and everything is portrayed throughout all three of those sectors is very important. So that's mainly what we look for when we bring in brands. And the last main point is making sure you bring in brands that match your own retail store. So if you're in a high-end area, for example, you want to bring in high-end brands that are more exclusive, more focused on the consumers that are around your area. If you're in, let's say, for example, Greenwich, where my vape store is, we have brands that cover every single section of pricing to quality to exclusiveness, because in Greenwich you'll have consumers that come in from all different demographics, people that have a £30 budget a week to someone who has a £150 budget a week. So those two consumers are going to buy different brands. So making sure you cover all the bases. That's me done for now. Yeah, Christina's going to ask the questions.
Yeah, let's open up the questions.
So we have one from Abhishek.
Okay.
He's asking, what margin should we expect from a distributor, knowing that distros work differently to suppliers?
You want to take that, Haidar?
So margin-wise, I'm guessing you're talking about you becoming a wholesaler. So if you're becoming a wholesaler in the CBD industry and you want to sell other brand stock, you're looking for around a 20% profit margin, basically. That's just to make sure you cover your cost. And then as you do more volume, you can go up to the 30% mark. You're welcome.
If anyone else has a question, that'll be a great time to ask. You can do this either by clicking on Q&A tab, or you can just add it in a chat, whatever works for you. Or you can even click on the raise a hand. Okay, looks like we have very shy audience today. Or you guys can have so good that you answered all the questions.
We'll take a minute and see if anyone has any questions. Okay, we've got a question coming. Deborah, thank you for your question. So what type of claims are you allowed to make, i.e. help sleep, etc.? Do you want to take that one, Haidar?
Well, I'll take that one. So in terms of claims, you're not allowed to make any claims in the CBD industry. You remember, we're not doctors, and to make claims like that, there's a lot of research that has to go through clinical trials and everything, and we haven't reached that stage as an industry. So the way to sell CBD products is more through personal experience. Research is very important. Send research to your consumers. What we like to do is we have consumers message us, and then we'll send them research. So whether they need or want to try CBD for, if it's for sleep, if it's for if they're exercising and they want to repair quicker, we'll send the information according to that, and then we leave it to the consumer to decide if they want to try a CBD product. So no claims, nothing like that.
Just to add to that point, what we practice in our stores, we provide leaflets with a basic understanding that customers can come and take home with them, so they don't feel when they come into your store that they're forced to purchase anything. That information will explain what CBD is, explain what CB1, CB2 receptors in our body are, and how that interacts with CBD in general. And then it also then has a QR code that leads them onto our website that has blogs that covers different aspects of CBD. And blogs are a very useful resource to help explain different questions that our customers may have with regards to CBD and its use in sleep, or with in fitness or working out, and general questions. So that eases them and that allows them. And it's important as a CBD retailer that this industry is going to grow only through education, and giving them that experience and allowing them to come in to understand the differences between all these different products, what is best suitable for them, but also being very careful. Like Haidar said, we aren't physicians, so we aren't in a position to provide medical claims, and understand also the aspect. What we like to do is CBD generally is an expensive product, and you don't want to be going for the high hard sell. You want to slowly introduce people into CBD products. Begin, as with multivitamins, when you're taking, if you're deficient in vitamin C, your doctor would give you a lower dosage and build your tolerance. And generally that's how we like to practice, and to ensure customers are building their tolerance, and then they're growing if they need a higher level of dosage within their CBD.
So I'll just add to that as a part of the virtual goodie bag that we'll be sending to our attendees, I will include the link to where our attendees can read up on the restrictions and guidelines. Because there's specific set of marketing guidelines and EU guidelines on the types of the claims that can and cannot be used when it comes to marketing the CBD products.
Fantastic, thank you, Christina.
No worries, we have 2 more questions.
Okay. So, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you, Shez, for your question. Do you have any advice on merchant accounts that accept CBD transactions? So Shez, that's a fantastic question, and is one of the most talked about issues within this industry. And through London Canna Group, which we started in 2019, when we started our exhibition in Excel, we wanted to allow businesses and consumers to attend with all the stakeholders. So you were able to attend and speak with payment gateways that would accept CBD. And it's one of the biggest issues, and finding the suitable partners is difficult in this industry. Chris, if you drop us a message with your email, we'd be happy to introduce you to our partners who will accept opening merchant accounts or bank accounts for you to take CBD payments for your store.
Great. Phil is asking what he should do about getting insurance for his business, product liability, etc., because most insurers do not seem to want to cover CBD products.
Thank you, Phil. Again, one of the reasons why we wanted to bring all stakeholders and different elements to allow people to start and run their own CBD businesses. Insurance is an important factor. And again, if you'd like to send us your contact details, we'll be happy to introduce you to companies whom we use who cover all of our insurance aspects, product liability insurance.
Okay, Abhishek has another question. This one's a little bit longer. He's asking, what is the affordability in the market currently for vaping cartridges for consumers and retailers versus vaping e-liquids refillable bottles? Has there been a surge in demand for cartridges, or has there been a surge in demand for refillable bottles? And what would be your advice to independent retailers in this industry?
From our trends, I believe the vaping industry has changed, has moved on to a sort of next phase. Generally speaking, to start off with, you had generally most of your customers were cloud chasers that would have a big device, a big mod, and they would generally buy large amount of juices to use. Since the arrival of brands like Juul and Blue and pod devices, which are a lot smaller, easier to use, customers are introduced to now nicotine salts and pods, and that generally means to most retailers they're selling less liquids. So nicotine salts, if you're not aware of, is a nicotine that's derived from the tobacco plant and gives you through the bloodstream. It gives you a quicker hit and you achieve your nicotine ambition quicker. So most customers now are generally, the trend you're seeing is that people are moving towards the nicotine salts, and because they're getting their hits quicker, they're generally buying less liquids in the larger 50 ml, 100 ml formats. And as a result, as we've seen, generally stores around the country are closing down, and liquids are where the profit margins are. So if you're selling less liquid because you're selling your 10 mils or pre-filled pods that come from Jaw Blue, we're finding that a lot of vape shops are now either turning to CBD and adding CBD into their product range, or unfortunately have found themselves making a loss and having to close down.
So I'll probably just add on to that question and Hassan's point. So what I'd like to focus on in terms of your question is consumer behavior. So as Hassan pointed out, when vaping first started, majority of devices were built for e-liquid bottles. So you'll buy a bottle, you fill up your tank, and off you go. Once pod systems came into the market, you saw that consumers wanted something that was far more easier to use, easier to handle, easier to carry around. So pods took over and are growing at a faster rate than e-liquid bottles in the market. In terms of CBD cartridges, I'm not sure if you're asking about CBD, but I'll just touch upon that. In terms of CBD, it's all about dosage. So for consumers, again, having a cartridge and a pod system makes it easier to handle, easier to carry. And it's almost I wouldn't say a better way of delivering CBD dosages, but it's a lot more easier to calculate for the consumer and the brand. So consumers prefer pod systems.
Okay, any other questions? Don't be shy, we can't bite you through the screen. Okay. Okay, I think we have just got one. Direct email for Housam. I will type that. Okay, another question from Abhishek. I guess he'll be typing. So what is the size of pods normally attractive to consumers? This one is another question from Abhishek.
So in terms of vaping products, yes. So the main complaint about pods is the amount of e-liquid that you get in the pod. Majority of are between the 1 mil to 2 mil mark. So what's unique about the pod is the coils. It allows the e-liquid to burn slower. So you go through 2 mil in a pod at the same rate as potentially 5-6 mil in a e-liquid bottle. So they are far smaller, but that's roughly majority of brands in the world are around the 1 mil to 2 mil mark.
But I am starting to add to that. I am starting to see companies producing a hybrid mouth to lung, direct to lung, that's slightly larger to hold to meet the demands of other customers. So with the change of the coil, you get a mouth to lung impact, or a different coil that you can put in the same device, direct to lung. So it gives that flexibility. So I am starting to see there's a hybrid devices becoming available that customers can purchase that are a lot bigger than your Juuls or your Blue devices, generally speaking. Brilliant question, guys. Is there any other questions?
Would you say the same size of the pods for CBD pods?
Yes. So most of the manufacturing, when it comes to vaping products, even for CBD vaping products, they come from the same suppliers almost. So you'll see that there's a massive pattern in the in the devices and the pods. So what happens in vaping is reflected upon the vaping of CBD products as well. So if in the vaping products it's mostly 1 to 2 mil, CBD is the same at the moment, 1 to 2 mil. But as Housam said, there are new developments happening in the industry, and they are increasing the sizes of pod systems as well.
Cheers. Okay, it looks like that's everything for today. So
I
what
think
else?
we've used this question, Christina, sorry. We have a question, Isola versus full spectrum.
Okay, let's see, where is that?
1027.
Okay, yeah, do you want to go over that one?
So in terms of Canna Club and our experience through Canna Club with consumers and everything, it really depends on the consumer and the condition. There are certain consumers that prefer isolate because for them it works better. For other people like myself, I stick to more the full spectrum side. I feel that works better for me. In terms of research, there's a lot of research supporting isolate for certain conditions and a lot of research supporting full spectrum. So it's one of those questions where it's more about the patient and the treatment of what they're being treated for, really. That would be my response to that question.
Generally speaking, just to add to that is, we generally prefer to bring in full spectrum products just to provide, the research shows the entourage effect and the benefits of having different compounds from the plant and how that helps with different ailments, and that is very important. The reason why we stock some isolate products is, for example, we may have a customer that comes in and says he is afraid, he wants to take CBD and sees the general effect and positive effect it has on him, but he gets tested at work and is concerned that small traces of THC may appear in his testing results, so doesn't generally want to have that problem. So he would prefer to take an isolate product over a full spectrum. So for those of you that don't know, a full spectrum is generally a CBD product that contains all the compounds in the plant, but you can legally sell it because it's lower than the safe limit of THC here in the UK. So contain THC, CBD, CBG, and all the other elements that come from the plant. And the research shows that these compounds and elements together have an effect on the body that attracts on the CB1 and CB2 receptors, which is helpful for many conditions.
Stephen commented that he's seeking to find a sweet spot with isolate and flower.
Okay. In terms of CBD flower, is generally speaking, it's a grey area, and unfortunately, from our experiences in the industry and having the relationships we do, we find quite a few retailers who have been stocking CBD flower have been in a position where police has come and taken away their products. If we're talking legally in terms, CBD flower isn't legal to be sold within stores. Some retailers are going around this by offering it in different formats, sort of like CBD tea and different other aspects. Again, with flower, it's best to, everybody's different, and different concentrations and different ratios of CBD, CBG, and different other elements may be more suitable for you than for somebody else. So I just recommend, if you are using CBD flower, is just to try and see what product is best suited for you.
I'm going to make one last point as well that I forgot to mention earlier. In terms of full spectrum, in the UK, we don't actually have full spectrum. That term comes more from America and Canada. The reason for that is full spectrum actually contains THC. That's why it's full spectrum. So in the UK, what we actually have is broad spectrum. That's more the term that we should be using in the UK.
We have an anonymous question. Can you sell CBD flower online then? There are a few websites which are selling them like hot cupcakes on a cold day. I believe it should be legal. However, I'm not sure if it is.
So thank you for the question. Again, generally speaking, what is legal to be sold in retail stores and online, the law applies to both of them. So generally speaking, if we're looking at them, the terms of the law, CBD flower is not legal to be sold. I am aware of websites that are selling and doing so, but again, it's with your own discretion of doing so, and we would just point out on paper and how things are. Generally speaking, CBD flower is not legal to be sold here in the UK.
Okay. Any other questions? As you have seen, you can be anonymous as well. It doesn't have to be under your name. But we're not going to tell anyone. Okay, I guess that's then all for today.
Fantastic. Again, I'd like to thank you all for joining us this morning for our first LCG Talks. And if you have any further questions or want to understand more about what London Canna Group offers and everything we discussed today, we also offer it on a consultancy basis. So if you need help in locating, developing or designing your store, is something that we can help you with here at London Canna Group. And if you require any information, please feel free to get in contact with either myself. I'll put my email in there, or Christina, and we'll be happy to help where we can. And we look forward to seeing you all and joining us for our coming week's LCG Talks with other members of our staff. So thank you all, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Also, in the virtual goodie bag, you will receive details on CBD insurance, payment gateways, advertising guidelines, and a couple of other surprises. So you will receive that via email.
Fantastic. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you. I hope guys join us for the next one as well. Same time next week.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Take care now.
Take care, everyone.